Welcome in to Rover Sports. It is time. Again, I want each take to be as hot as that fire, as my fire pit is, the Rover fire pit. Because you're down in the basement, red Solo cups behind me. Who knows what's in that red Solo cup, right? Again, for you guys to all imagine. Welcome in the Rover. Hope everybody's having a good evening tonight. Auburn decides that they are going to hire Bryan Harsin from Boise, Idaho. A guy from Boise, Idaho going to Auburn, Alabama. They fired Gus Malzahn and they're paying him $20 million over the next 3 years to hire a group of five coach from the Mountain West Conference that is inheriting Chris Peterson's guys in Bryan Harsin. What is going on at Auburn? You fire Gus Malzahn and you bring in Bryan Harsin. This is just like bringing in Chad Morris at Arkansas. You know, everybody wins at Boise State. You play in the Mountain West. You don't play that good a competition. You look at Boise State, it was everything Patterson built up Boise State. You look at Kellen Moore. You look at some of the really good players like Hightower came from Boise State. Doug Martin, I believe, running back played at Boise State. I mean, there's Leighton Vander Esch, linebacker, played at Boise State. So there's a lot of good players that have came from Boise State. A lot of good players, good defensive players too. Okay, it's a filthy good school for recruits, but you play in the Mountain West. You don't play that good. Again, when's the last time Boise beat somebody amazing? Maybe it was Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl, hook and ladder. Ian Johnson takes it in, proposes to his girlfriend. So you look at Auburn. It's 3 hours from Atlanta. No. It's 2 hours from Atlanta, Georgia. 2 hours from Atlanta. It's 2 hours from Nashville. It's 2 hours from New Orleans. It's 2 hours from Louisiana. It's 2 hours from everywhere. It's 2 hours from the Panhandle of Florida. You go down to Tampa. It's a quick flight down to Tampa. Quick flight to Orlando. You can even go down to the Miami area. But you just hang out in Tampa. Hang out in Orlando. Go up to Jacksonville. Take over Daytona Beach. Go and just dip in the state of Georgia. You throw a pebble. What's the old saying? You throw a pebble, what do you hit? A 5 or a 4-star defensive or offensive lineman. Now that's football. That's what you do. And I know I got the Alabama shirt on, but listen, I went down to Mobile last year, got me an Alabama shirt, okay? So everybody's going to look at this and say, you hate Auburn, you hate Auburn, you hate Auburn, you hate Auburn. But the fact is, for Auburn, this isn't a good hire. I mean, I'm a neutral SEC guy. Again, I'm up here from the north, and I like SEC football. I mean, my favorite teams in the SEC, probably I like South Carolina with Shane Beamer, Sam Pittman in Arkansas. So I rotate. I wear all different sorts of shirts. So I'm sure I'll get that during the video. Point is about Bryan Harsin. He's at BYU. Everybody wins at BYU. He has no coaching experience in the South. If they hired Will Hall, it would have been a lot better hire. If they hired Will Healy, who's an excellent recruiter, who took Austin Peay and made Austin Peay a contender. If you go 7-6 at Austin Peay, that is more impressive than going what Bryan Harsin did at Boise State, which is not win anything. Boise State 12-2. I guess that's a good year for Bryan Harsin. 11-3, 10-3. What good quarterbacks have come out of Boise State? I mean, you had the Rippin kid, who's an all right quarterback, and then you've had this year Hank Backmeyer and Jack Sears. So it's not like you have unbelievable quarterback play. It's not like the quarterback play is absolutely electric. It's not like it's incredibly elite. You still lose sometimes to BYU, which they did this year with Zach Wilson. So you're still going to lose that game sometimes. So you look at Boise State overall, they do slip up in the Mountain West. Harsin is an all right coach. He was all right at Boise State. I think he'll be all right in the SEC, but he's not going to be special. Will Healy would have been special. Chadwell would have been special. Now, this isn't to the level of Jed Fish. This is not going to be... I would be surprised if this is a complete disaster, because this dude is a solid guy, Bryan Harsin. I like his personality. He's a straight-up good guy, okay? Brian Harsin, you ever listen to him do a coaching clinic, he could tell you about third down beaters. He's a solid guy. He's a pretty good coach. But the point is, he doesn't know the recruiting area that well. That's where Will Hall of Southern Miss is better in that regard. That is where I truly believe that Will Healy and Chadwell, they run the best offenses in the country, and they're dynamic, okay? This is an average hire for Auburn. They went from Gus Malzahn land, which is absolutely 8-4 average land, and they might get 8-4. They might even be less exciting. At least the Gus bus every time. Sometimes you'd land on 6-6, but sometimes you'd spin the Gus bus or take the Gus bus for a spin. He might get you to Atlanta somehow. He might beat Nick Saban with a crazy scheme or something. So the point is, though, you fired Gus Malzahn, and then the guy you wanted to hire is Hugh Freeze. I should have even said Hugh Freeze. Okay, let's look at the options that Auburn was looking at. Mario Cristobal. They maybe wanted him. Now, Mario's an unbelievable recruiter. He's not as special of a coach as Hugh Freeze whatsoever. The offense isn't that good. He had Justin Herbert. He wasn't even that good at Oregon when he had Herbert. Herbert was a good quarterback, but he's even better when he gets to the pro game, okay? So you look at Cristobal. Yeah, Cristobal's a good CEO. He's decent. He's a little bit better than Brian Harsin. But then Hugh Freeze would have been a home run at the University of Auburn. Heck, he's taking Malik Wilson, an Auburn guy, or Malik Willis, and he's taking an Auburn guy. Point is, there, Darius Slayton came out of Auburn. The running backs, Kerryon Johnson, Trey Mason, Tank Bigsby's there. I mean, unbelievable running backs come out of Auburn. The defensive linemen, you of course have Derek Brown come out of Auburn. You have Thomas, the safety, Carlton Davis, very good cornerback. So Smoke Mondays, a really decent cornerback for the University of Auburn. Auburn has beasts. Marlon Davidson, Lawson of the Bengals. So the point is, at Auburn, you could flat out recruit. And Hugh Freeze in that offense, I mean, with Bo Wallace, he had a decent offense. He got Chad Kelly. That offense was incredible. Hugh Freeze's ability to create explosive offensive plays is uncanny. He beat Alabama. He beat Nick Saban, straight up. He was with Chad Kelly. He went down there to Alabama, and I know Cooper Bateman had a horrible game, and I know Jake Coper and Bateman threw 5 interceptions combined, but the point is, if Hunter Henry didn't lateral that football back for Arkansas in that game at Ole Miss would have went to Atlanta, and Alabama would not have won the SEC championship, and they would not have beat Clemson in the college football championship game, which was, I believe, in 2015. I actually believe that they beat Michigan State that year, who beat an undefeated Iowa that year. But the point is about Brian Harsin. Completely average hire. Shane Beamer's a lot better hire. Shane Beamer already going to go out and try to get some elite offensive coordinators. Now, what Shane Beamer's doing, Will Friend's okay. He's hiring a lot of guys from the Tennessee staff. I look at it as all right. It's a lot of guys that he has personal friendships with, I guess. And Will Friend at Tennessee, the running game was decent, but he was on the verge of getting fired many times, and he had the best talent, so maybe Will Friend can recruit. The point is about Brian Harsin going to the Plains is he does not know Alabama. He does not know the recruiting ground whatsoever. He's never been in Auburn or Alabama. He's never been in the South, which is okay. I mean, he's been at Arkansas. All right. Point is, he was at Boise State. And I really look at Hugh Freeze, and Hugh Freeze is absolutely tremendous. I mean, the offense. Hugh Freeze has lived in the South his entire life, grew up in Mississippi, spent that time in Tennessee, his honeymoon in Knoxville. And that's the point, is that Hugh Freeze, I believe the conspiracy is that, because if you connect the dots, Art Briles retired from Mount Vernon High School out there in Texas, and then you look at what Jeremy Pruitt, or you look at Hugh Freeze, and Hugh Freeze was going to take the Auburn job, but something might have backfired with a booster who really wanted to keep Kevin Steele on staff, or a booster was offended by the hookers or the money that happened at Ole Miss, okay? So Auburn got cold feet on the whole deal with Jimmy Sexton and everything that transpired over there, and now our Browse is left with hanging onto the bag, so to speak. I mean, now Art Browse is left with almost nothing, and now Art, can go help out his son in Fayetteville or find some other place for this year. or maybe just head to Liberty, live in Liberty until Hugh Freeze gets to Tennessee next year or something, or gets a job, because he will. I mean, to take Liberty, who's been dead, and have Malik Willis and have that team be as elite as they are this year and beat teams like Virginia Tech, beat teams like Syracuse, that is special stuff when you're beating ACC teams and you're putting up these types of numbers. Liberty is legit, and Hugh Freeze is an elite level coach. He's done it in the SEC before. He's a million times better than Brian Harsin, who's never done in the SEC. And you look at the explosiveness and the offensive expertise of Hugh Freeze, the recruiting ability to get Laquan Treadwell, to get the Kemdichis. The Kemdichis were the number one players in JUCO. Yeah, not even in JUCO. They were Denzel Kemdichi and the guy Kemdichi that had the incident of falling out of his apartment in Atlanta. I mean, the Kemdichis were unbelievable gets. Laquan Treadwell up there in Illinois, to get him, amazing. To get Chad Kelly, a.k.a. Swag Kelly, from Scuba, Mississippi, and take him and win a Sugar Bowl title, to win Sugar Bowls in Oxford, Mississippi at Ole Miss. Ole Miss, like, they look at their history, they often overrate their history, Ole Miss fans, but for Hugh Freeze to do what he did there and to beat Alabama those times, those are some of the best times in the history of Ole Miss football. So, and now what he's doing at Liberty, he's humbled. He's a good person. I really believe it. And I know Hugh is going to do a great job at the University of Tennessee. I think that's his dream job. I think that's where he really wanted to go. I think it's completely reckless that Auburn, that they're boosters, that I think it was reckless to fire Malzahn and have no plan. It was absolutely embarrassing. This is kind of like hiring Jeremy Pruitt. I think that Harsin is going to last about 5 years. Well, he's already is not in favor with the fan base that much. So I think that Harsin could last about 3 or 4 years. He's a solid guy. He's not going to completely fail at this job. He's not a home run, though, by any means. He'll be completely dead average. He won't threaten Nick Saban at all. And what could have been if you hired a Chadwell, if you went and got one of the best recruiters out there in the game in Will Healy, if you went out and got Hugh Freeze, all three of those guys are elite level or top level. Not Cristobal, and certainly not Brian Harsin. So I was stunned when this hire was made. It just showed the incompetence of the Auburn search. Now, if they were down to Kevin Steele and they were down to Brian Harsin, again, I would have looked in other places. I would have looked even at Liam Cohen. I would have looked at Zach Kittley, actually, the offense being with Patrick Mahomes, but Liam Cohen would have been special. The University of Kentucky offensive coordinator, he's going to get a job in 1 year. He's the next Joe Brady. I believe that. If you look at the pedigree, if you look at him going from Maine to Rhode Island and getting recruited by the Rams with no NFL connections, playing quarterback at the college level, and being elite in D2 college, and his ability to communicate is next level elite. So I think that Liam Cohen's going to be a better head coach wherever he goes than I do Brian Harsin. You also look at Kellen Moore. You look at Joe Brady. I think that there's a lot of young coaches that would have looked at this job, okay? But it's just that Auburn, the situation with the boosters not being consistent, the fact that you have to play Georgia in the crossover game, the fact that you play Alabama, maybe it's a really tough job for some people that they don't want, because the SEC West, with all the money that A&M has, with all the in-state recruiting that Ed Orgeron has, and he might happen to hit on another offensive coordinator or another defensive coordinator after Pelini, and now Scott Linehan is leaving, Ensminger's retiring, so they're going for a whole staff turnover at LSU right now. So anyway, this hire for Auburn, I'm curious. I bet Steele is going to stay. Maybe some people from Boise come over. Harsin, again, he's a great guy. I have nothing bad to say about Brian the person. I'm excited for Brian. It's a great opportunity. Congratulations to him. There's a chance that he gets to 8 or 9 wins. And that he's fulfilling expectations, but he's not going above expectations. And if you're Auburn, you want hope. You want something really, really special. And Harson's a cool guy. Everybody's going to get along with Harson in the SEC. Harson, again, couldn't be a better guy. He is a decent coach. He is not a dud whatsoever. So he's an 8-4, 9-3 guy. He's pretty solid. He's not going to be embarrassing like a Pruitt or even like a Chad Morris. He's not going to flame out on you like even Butch Jones. So it's a decent landing spot. Now, for Kentucky, Harson would be unbelievable. Even for Tennessee football, the point is Auburn's been decent with Gus. They haven't gone through a decade of complete failure. So Auburn going 8-4, 9-3, it's fine. It's very good. It's all right. But at Tennessee going 9-3 and building that consistency is kind of what UT is looking for. I think Harson at University of Tennessee would happen to beat Florida. I happen to think that he would sometimes compete with Georgia. I don't know about beating Alabama, but again, I think that Harson at Tennessee would actually be very decent. I think the fan base would kind of get along with him, even though it's a tough fan base to please. So that is the thing about the University of Tennessee. They care a lot about their football team. They care about the media. They're as smart as anybody. That's the most intense job. You got to love football. You got to love the camaraderie, and it's all about winning in Tennessee. At Auburn, it'll be a little bit of an easier crowd, but again, there are high expectations for Harson. Again, a lot of guys are like, who's this guy coming from Boise? And listen, I want to go to the South. I want to try to coach football down there, hang out in the South too. So again, a guy coming in, Nick Saban came from up north, in West Virginia. Now, West Virginia is not totally up north, but he came from Michigan State. He came from Kent State. So it can be done. And for Brian, I think that it's important for him to get Auburn people on the staff. And once again, I think that Brian Harsin is a he is towards the top of college football. He's not. Put it this way, if Harsin was at Texas Tech, he's good. He's better than Matt Wells. He's a very decent football coach. He's fine. The offense is decently fine. I think he'll beat the teams he's supposed to beat. So that's how I look at Harsin. That's how I look at Auburn football. Very interesting hire. If I had to give a grade on it, the Arizona job is an F. To me, you look at Auburn, you look at everything that it has to offer. It's a C- coaching. It's C-. It's not a D. It's a C-. This guy Harsin will be there 5 years. They'll be. I don't think they're getting to any SEC championships. 1 in 5 years at max, and that's everybody has to suck, including Nick Saban and everybody. So 1 in 5 years, I would predict. But maybe Harsin proves me wrong. And listen, if a guy's going to prove me wrong, it might as well be a great guy like Brian Harsin again. I really like Brian Harsin, the guy. And so I think that this hire, again, is just like a C- hire. I'm not really enthused or really that excited about it with the recruiting and everything. But I think that Harsin will do fine at Auburn. But, again, kind of purgatory city. Alrighty, guys. Thank you. A lot of Purgatory City, by the way, has to do with Nick Saban. So, again, you're at Auburn. You kind of got to hire a really innovative, awesome coach, which is what Healy, to what Chadwell, and to what Hugh Freeze would have been. So, Tennessee, again, they have Chadwell and they have Hugh Freeze, probably leaning Hugh Freeze. That, to me, would get an A grade in my book. Alrighty, guys. Thanks again for watching the show.